She's Amy Trask, and hi.
Well, hi, Rich. Hi.
Hi, Amy. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing well. Is it odd that after all these years of having worked with you on League Matters and
Yes.
being a fan of yours that I'm still kind of nervous joining you on your show?
Oh, come on, Amy. How could you be nervous of being on this show when you've walked into any sorts of meetings with Al Davis over the years? That never made you nervous? Not once?
You know, it didn't, but you do. So I'm going to try to hold it together during this show.
I'm a Jew born in Brooklyn, too. And other than that, I think that's the end of me and Al Davis having any sort of connection to each other. I don't know.
Now, that would be a good topic to explore someday.
And we both love football. Okay, first order of business. What do you make of Le'Veon Bell's business strategy this year, Amy?
You know, it's tough to say for the following reason. We don't know what he was advised. We don't know if he was advised in one manner but chose to not take that advice. And certainly it is absolutely his right to proceed in any manner he believes best for himself. So while I have concerns about the decision he made from strictly a financial standpoint and the ability to recoup money, the ability to recoup a year of life, so to speak, not in a literal sense, I don't question the decision of someone else to do what he believes was the right thing and in his best interest, irrespective of whether I do or I don't.
No, I know. I hear you. It seems, though, that he just he had a point that he wanted to make, that his value was not what the Steelers were valuing, and he was not going to show up. And then maybe he thought he needed to, and then he found out that he didn't. I'm curious to know if that was part of it. But I understand him not showing up now, right? I mean, he's got to pay. He's got a payday where he needs to make $14 million more than he was going to, essentially, right?
Sure. And Rich, you know as well as anyone that every player is one play away from a catastrophic injury, a career-ending injury. And when I say catastrophic, I really do mean that, not simply in a career standpoint. We had a running back who had a life-threatening injury that not only ended his career, but could have been far worse. So, you know, if he made this decision for strategic reasons, I will not question him because it is his life and his decision to make. But I did have the sense that there was some amount of confusion with respect to this, with an understanding of the rules. Again, I don't know what his agent was advising him. It also strikes me as somewhat sad. I just wonder if he was happy with his decision or if this snowballed.
Amy Trask here on the Rich Eisen Show. So how do you think management types in the NFL, general managers, owners, team presidents, will approach Le'Veon Bell's impending free agency with him being out a year and also with his suspension history? And I don't bring that up to denigrate at all, but that is what is always going to be put in there because those don't go away. Those accumulate and potentially manifest themselves in a longer suspension next time out. How do you think he will, what type of contract do you think is going to be put in front of him?
Well, it'll be organizational specific, as you know. The points you made are not only 100% accurate, but so important. There will be teams, whether it's ownership or management, that look at the points you just noted and be wary in proceeding, either because of the suspensions or because of the manner in which he handled things this year. And there will be plenty of other organizations who simply say, can this man help us win? And as you know, Rich, the owner for whom I worked often didn't look at anything other than whether or not he believed it could help us on the field. And while that is absolutely commendable in some instances, there were other instances in which I thought he should have factored more into the analysis. This isn't one of those, though. Or I should say the suspension issue is something to look at. I wouldn't let what he did this year impact my decision.
At all, huh? None.
You know, I really wouldn't. And I guess I should put one footnote on that. I would have to have a conversation with him about it. And I would have to understand what happened. Was this calculated? Does he feel that he was well advised? Did it snowball? I would want to understand what went into the decision. But the point you made as to the sort of cumulative nature of suspensions and punishment, that's a real concern.
So do you think he's, I guess then final one on this one, do you think he's going to get that 4-5 year long-term contract with all sorts of back-end numbers that he feels the year off will allow him to reach because he has lack of tire tread on him? Do you think he's going to get that based on everything that we have seen play out right now, Amy Trask?
Perhaps not to the extent he believes he can. Now, a team can do something to help him save face, if you will, and they can announce a contract that just sounds, to use a very technical business term, humongous. But as you know, if it's back-ended and if there are no guarantees, it can sound very large. But ultimately, when you read the language of the contract, you realize it is simply a year-to-year contract. Will he get a good amount? I do believe so. Will it be as big as he wishes it to be? That's harder to imagine.
Okay, so what's more confusing, do you think, in your mind, Amy Trask, to figure out if there was a plan, or is there a plan, or what the plan is? Le'Veon Bell or John Gruden, Amy Trask?
Wow, that puts a girl on the spot, right? Look, I will caveat this by stating that I shall forever and always wish nothing but success for Raider fans and the Raider Nation. And so I say what I'm about to say with that in mind, because I want success for them. And Rich, I was really hopeful that in the year or possibly 2 years the team has remaining before fleeing Oakland, that they would deliver for the fans in that region. That said, I will cut to the chase and say that I'm very perplexed by what is going on. When the owner hired Reggie 6 years ago, the mandate, if you will, was, I think the language was deconstruct and then reconstruct. John has come in and clearly he or the owner or both of them have decided that reconstruction was not a success, and they are again beginning a rebuild. Well, fair enough. That's John's right to do as the new person with total control of the operations of the team. But if you're going to rebuild, again, fair enough. I don't understand the manner in which it's being done. Spending close to $60 million on aging veterans who aren't going to be there for a long-term rebuild. I don't begrudge the signing of veterans. They can help a team. But why wouldn't you have taken that money and allocated it to the person I believe was Reggie McKenzie's best draft pick by a wide margin, which is Khalil Mack? That is precisely the type of player you should build around. So I get it. John was not impressed with the rebuild that was done. He wants to do his own rebuild. Fair enough. He's got the authority to do so. But I don't understand the manner in which it's being done. And by the way, giving away some draft picks for veterans as well as all that money, I would have thought that the team would have wanted to build around Khalil Mack. Your
best guess, you think Derek Carr's on that roster starting 2019, Amy Trask?
If you were to sort of put the proverbial gun to my head, I would say yes. But I'm giving it just slightly over a 50% yes. I don't think it's assured by any stretch. And the question is, of course, are they able to draft someone they think better? Remember, they just gave Derek Carr a very, very big contract. And yes, they can walk away at not a substantial cost, but they have to believe they can do better in the draft or otherwise if they're to let him go.
So what would Al make of this if he was alive today, seeing what's going on? Gruden back, his son giving him 9 more years on a 10-year contract, the deconstruction, you say, I think they're tanking, Amy. I think they're tanking. I think that they got that the Bruce Irvin cut is the latest example of underneath the patina, if you will, or veil of not this team's type of player, cutting a pass rusher when you've been lamenting your lack of pass rush as they have. And I don't know what was going on in the locker room. I think they're tanking. And I think it's better than 50-50 coin flip that the commissioner gets a tanking question put in front of him at this year's Super Bowl State of the Union address, because it is so blatant in my thought. So what do you think Al would say on this subject?
Well, a couple things. Interesting point about a question to Roger Goodell. I had not considered that. That's interesting.
I think it's coming. I mean, how else to take this, Amy?
Well, the thing that's fascinating to me, Rich, is even assume for the moment that you're correct, which, of course, I always assume that you're correct, Rich. I've never seen an athlete take the field with any intent other than to win.
That's
now,
true. That's
some
true.
athletes
That's true.
play harder than others. So even if what you're positing is correct, it's really incomprehensible to me to imagine that there's buy-in of that or participation in that on the player level. But that doesn't mean, you're not right in other regards. Al would have done something entirely differently. And by the way, he would have been heavily criticized for it. And by the way, he wouldn't have cared about the criticism. He would have found a way to keep Khalil Mack. And he would, and when I say he would have done it in a manner that would have generated criticism, Al, look, Rich, if I had the proverbial dollar for every time Al said to me during my career, the quarterback must go down and he must go down hard, heck, I could probably buy a team, and she says facetiously. He cherished pass rush, and he would have found a way to keep Khalil Mack. And you know what? He would have overpaid, or he would have paid an amount that many in the league would have deemed overpayment. And he wouldn't have given a darn because he would have found a way to get his guy. So I do think he would have disagreed with the approach to Khalil Mack, and he would have done what people call overpaying, and he wouldn't have cared.
Well, I'm glad you said what you said as well, Amy, because I do want to say that I do not believe Raiders players are putting on a helmet and pads and cleats every week with the intention of losing a football game. I don't think that at all. And I don't think John Gruden's putting on a headset with the intention of we are losing today. What I'm saying is that when you cut so much meat off the bone and put it on the field, you're not going to be ultra competitive when it's all said and done. And that that potentially human nature takes over and tents get folded up second, third quarter as opposed to maybe fourth or not at all. That's what I'm saying.
I gotcha. Thank you for helping. I was always the slow kid in the back of the class.
No. But you make a great point that I don't think that players go on the field or coaches go out there with the intent of losing. But before I let you go, what do you think happened in the front offices, or what do you know, if anything, that happened in 345 Park Avenue for the league to pull up stakes on the Mexico game that they wanted to play with every intention?
You know what? Credit to the National Football League. The National Football League did the right thing. It prioritized player safety over business interests. As you just noted, Rich, the league wanted that game in Mexico, and it did the right thing. And, I tweeted out yesterday, early in the morning, if that field is not safe, the game should be moved. And there are a tremendous amount of logistics associated with it, costs associated with it. I do believe the league should do all it can to make the fans who purchase tickets to that game in Mexico whole for the ticket price and perhaps a travel stipend for future travel. But at the end of the day, the league did the right thing. You cannot talk about prioritizing player safety if you don't prioritize player safety. And I say hats off to the NFL because it did that.
So did you hear that players are planning on boycotting?
I did hear some chitter-chatter about that, and irrespective of whether it was going to be an actual boycott or simply an articulation of concerns, to the extent the league factored in how strongly the players felt, again, credit to the league. I think the league did the right thing. It is not an easy business decision. It's going to be costly. I do want the fans taken care of, and I hope we can use this moment in Los Angeles to do something for the community with respect to the fires and the shootings at that game, but the league did the right thing.
Do you think that the fact that there were two Super Bowl contenders playing in this game led to any of it? The fact that
call me an optimist. Some people might say, Aim, you're being Pollyanna about this. I believe, and I want to believe, and I hope to believe the league would have done the same irrespective of the teams.
All right, Amy. Thanks for the time. Really love it. Got to get you in here in person next time, but you know that
I
already.
would love to, and thank you for having me.
Every time. Amy Trask. Really nobody quite like her.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.